This figure was walking along that tree line right there. Turned around and it looked at me, and I saw these big red eyes. It was big.
There was something that I kind of found online of somebody claiming they think they saw a Bigfoot out here. Like they saw a very tall, abnormal creature.
Have you ever felt watched in the middle of nowhere, when the forest goes still and every instinct tells you you're not alone? Tonight, we're diving into 8 chilling moments when Bigfoot got way too close for comfort. Encounters so real.
It was standing right next to that oak tree.
Each encounter is a piece of a much bigger mystery, one that might prove how close these creatures really are. Stay tuned till the end, because the last one may just change how you see the woods forever. Footage courtesy Wild Man of Woods. A peaceful camping trip turned into a nightmare when Kevin and his friend encountered something terrifying in the dark woods of Oak Openings Preserve. Heavy footsteps, crashing trees, and a blood-curdling scream shattered the night. Was it the legendary Bigfoot, or something even more unexplainable? It began with a sound that froze Kevin in his tracks, a scream unlike anything he had ever heard. Wild, guttural, and chilling, it ripped through the silence. Kevin couldn't explain it, but he knew deep down it wasn't human.
That scream, man, it was just like nothing I've ever heard. It was freaking terrifying. To this day, I honestly don't know what it was. I can't explain it, but it definitely was not a human.
The night had started perfectly. Just Kevin and his friend, swapping stories around a crackling fire beneath a blanket of stars. Then, without warning, the forest went dead silent. No crickets, no birds, just an eerie stillness pressing down.
We were just sitting out there around the fire, hanging out, and then everything just got real quiet, like freaky quiet. There was no crickets, there was no birds, no nothing.
Moments later came the footsteps, slow, heavy, circling their camp in the dark. That's when real fear began.
And then all of a sudden we started hearing these footsteps all around where we were chilling, just walking around a circle around us. It was really freaky.
As the firelight dimmed, the footsteps grew nearer, each one heavier and more deliberate than the last, echoing through the dark woods with an almost menacing rhythm. Branches snapped, brush rustled, and then, without warning, an entire tree crashed down just a few feet away.
These footsteps kept getting closer and closer, and they kept sounding, more and more aggressive, and we started to get real worried. And then all of a sudden we started hearing like crashing through brush, and this tree just fell over.
That was the breaking point. Kevin and his friend didn't hesitate for a second. They turned and ran, hearts pounding, desperate to escape whatever was stalking them.
That was it, man. We were done. I could just feel it in my bones. It was terrifying. Just
Then came the scream, something Kevin would never forget. He had spent countless nights in the woods, but this was different. Low at first, distant, then rising into a sound so haunting it froze the air, like a woman crying in pain, yet twisted, deeper, guttural, primal. It vibrated through the trees and straight into his chest, a sound that lingered.
Like nothing I've ever heard. We spent a lot of time out in the woods, hanging out, sitting around, drinking beer, but I've never heard anything like this. Like if you could imagine a woman just screaming at the top of her lungs, but it sounded creepier, like lower and more guttural, and I could just feel it in my bones. It was.
That night remains etched in Kevin's mind. Everyone he tells assumes it was a black bear, but there are none in that part of Northwest Ohio. Kevin grew up here. He knows every sound, every movement, every creature that calls these woods home. Deer, coyotes, owls, he's seen them all. But whatever was out there that night was bigger, heavier, and utterly wrong. The forest itself seemed to push them out. Kevin swears he'll never return. Was it Bigfoot stalking them that night, or something far older, far more dangerous?
Dude, to this day, I have no idea what that was. Everybody that I've told about this is like, oh, you probably just saw a black bear. there are no black bears in this part of Northwest Ohio. Like, there's not a single black bear anywhere around here. You know, they have them in the southern part of the state. They have them up in northern Michigan, but not around here. So I know for a fact it wasn't a bear. We don't have anything else that big besides deer, and I know what a deer looks like. Whatever was out there, all I know is it didn't want us there, and I will never go back into those woods as long as I live.
Meet the creator behind Rocky Mountain Sasquatch, a YouTube channel devoted to exploring the rugged, isolated landscapes of the American West in search of Bigfoot. Expeditions take viewers from forgotten history to modern sightings, diving deep into the heart of the legend. But as he and his companion would soon discover, some myths are rooted in terrifying truths you never want to face.
Jarbidge Mountains are a gateway to a Bigfoot sighting hotspot. Idaho's I had to take a closer look at the history of this very remote forest on the south side of the Sawtooth Mountains. I visit the area to take a good look around for Bigfoot evidence. Here is some of the history that I dug up on Jarbidge.
The journey begins in the Jarbidge Wilderness, nestled on the edge of Idaho's Sawtooth Mountains, an area notorious for Bigfoot sightings. The host sets the stage by recounting the brutal history of the region, including the harrowing survival story of Rita Chrétien, stranded for 47 days in this unforgiving landscape.
There's many legends, Shoshone and Paiute, that come out of the Jarbidge area. It is about a giant, kind of like a ghost story, but maybe it has some relation to Bigfoot. They call it Tusaha-Bits. Tusaha-Bits lived in a rugged, remote canyon. He was a very large and hairy creature. He ate the native Shoshone and Paiute, and so legend has it, they never went into the Jarbidge country.
The true horror of the area emerges through ancient legends. He speaks of Soa Pitsa, a massive, hairy, cannibalistic giant known to the Shoshone and Paiute tribes, one that hunted anyone foolish enough to wander into its territory.
Alright, I don't know what that is. Can you see it?
Yeah, you need to get out of the back.
It's sitting there, but I don't know what it is. See, it kind of looks like he's sitting there. Like that's his... Does it look like anything to you, or is it just... It just looked like that's its head right there. And that's its body. It's like sitting there. I don't know.
As they scan the rugged mountainside, the camera operator catches sight of a dark, unmoving figure high up on the slope. Its distinct shape, a head, a body, and what appears to be an arm, stands out against the surrounding rocks and trees. A heavy unease settles in as they focus the camera on the strange silhouette, waiting for it to move.
It would have moved by now if it was a Bigfoot sitting there. It looks like his head keeps moving, but the whole thing is shifting.
Does look like the head moves.
I know, it's creepy, huh? That's why I started going, I need a tripod. Should have got up and walked off by now.
Probably.
Yeah. Anyway, it's still interesting, whatever it is.
For several minutes, they hold their breath, filming the still figure. Its shape is unnervingly deliberate, too defined to be a stump or shadow. The host admits his fear, recalling the shock of first seeing it. Despite the distance, its presence is undeniable. They debate its nature, but the longer it remains motionless, the thicker the tension becomes. Is it a creature of immense patience, or just a trick of the light?
I don't know. That'd be so cool if it stood up and started walking away. But it's just still sitting there. Doesn't it look like something sitting there?
Yeah, it does.
But it hasn't moved. It's just still sitting there.
It even almost seems like a big old gorilla sitting there.
I
That's
know.
his bottom leg and his shoulder and arm and his
that's
head sitting out.
That's why I was freaking out, because it looked like shiny.
The shape resembles a large primate, like a gorilla too closely to dismiss. Yet its absolute stillness defies any logic for a living creature. Miles from civilization, deep in a land steeped in dark legends, they find themselves staring at something that shouldn't be there.
There was also a sighting that took place in January 23rd, 1980. The most recent Bigfoot sighting in the fall of 2014, 3 deer hunters were harassed by 3 Bigfoot for 8 nights out of a 9-day hunting trip.
Though they eventually moved on, the mystery of the figure on the hill remains. Was it merely a coincidental rock formation that fooled the eye, or were they being silently observed by a creature that has haunted this wilderness for centuries? Footage courtesy Animal Planet. The BFRO team returned to rural Louisiana to investigate a 13-year-old girl who claims to have encountered Bigfoot at least 6 times while walking her dog near the dense woods behind her home. The investigation team gathered to hear her account. A legend said to walk among us. The room went silent as she began.
My sighting happened about 6 months ago. We were walking back from the little creek, and I kept hearing this rustling in the leaves.
5 years ago, on a quiet evening, she was leaving a friend's house when a chilling, unearthly scream pierced the night. Raw, guttural, inhuman, it froze her in place, fear gripping every inch of her body.
5 years ago, I was at a friend's house and was walking out of their door, jumped towards my car, and I heard this scream. It wasn't human.
She froze where she stood, her entire body trembling as tears streamed uncontrollably down her face. Every rustle, every shifting shadow around her suddenly fell alive, watching, waiting, turning the quiet woods into something terrifyingly unfamiliar.
But it scared me so bad that I just immediately began to cry. I just stopped dead in my tracks and cried. It made my inside shake.
Another girl, Renee, stepped forward. 6 months ago, while returning from a quiet creek, she heard leaves rustle unnaturally. Her dog growled and stiffened. When she looked back, a towering figure, 6.5 to 7 feet tall, covered in thick brown-black fur, stood motionless among the trees, its dark, unblinking eyes fixed on her, silently watching.
My sighting happened about 6 months ago. We were walking back from the little creek, and I kept hearing this rustling in the leaves. Then I had my dog with me, and she was acting really strange. And I looked behind me, and there's this 6.5, 7 foot tall creature covered in brownish black fur. And I looked, and probably about 30, 40 yards right there, it was just staring at me.
When she finally glanced back, her breath caught. About 30 to 40 yards away, the creature stood perfectly still among the trees. Its dark, unblinking eyes were locked on her, filled with an unsettling intelligence. The forest seemed to hold its breath as the leaves whispered faintly around them, the silence pressing in while that shadowed figure continued to watch her without moving an inch.
And I looked, and probably about 30, 40 yards right there, it was just staring at me.
Renee described repeated encounters, wood knocks echoing through the trees, fleeting glimpses of the creature lurking just out of sight. In the last 8 years, probably about 6 times, she whispered, her voice tense. All of them are near my house. It's literally my backyard.
And almost every time I go in the woods, I get a wood knock or I see it.
How many times have you seen it?
In the last 8 years, probably about 6 times.
6 times near your house?
It's literally my backyard.
Bobo met with the witness, Craig Woolheater, a Louisiana Bigfoot eyewitness, offering a firm handshake and a calm nod. As he looked around the area, his brow furrowed. It was nothing like he had imagined. "This is completely different from what I pictured," Bobo said quietly, scanning the woods around them.
Hey, Craig.
Hey, Bobo. Good to see you.
Yeah, man. Once again, I have a picture in my mind of where the event took place when I get out of here.
Craig recounted his own sighting. Heading north on Highway 71, he saw an upright figure moving through a clearing, walking parallel to the road in complete silence. About 7 feet tall, covered in dark hair that rippled with each step, broad-shouldered and powerful, it was unmistakably Bigfoot.
We were heading north on Highway 71. About halfway from the edge of the road to the wood line there, we see an upright figure. It's covered in hair, and it was walking parallel to the road.
His mind struggled to comprehend what he had seen. When people asked if he was sure it was Bigfoot, he couldn't think of any other explanation. The creature walked upright on 2 legs, stood about 7 feet tall, and was covered in thick, dark hair that seemed to ripple with each movement. Its broad shoulders and powerful frame made it clear this was no ordinary animal. After hearing these accounts from deep in rural Louisiana, one question lingers. If you were standing alone in those woods, with the legend silently watching, what would you do? Flee or face the mystery that walks among us?
I mean, it was walking on 2 legs, 7 foot tall, covered in hair.
That's just elementary math. 7 foot tall, 2 legs, hairy. That's a squatch.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, there
right?
you go. You run a research group. What kind of reports do you get down around here, like the Louisiana, Texas area? Do you hear like the big, bulky ones or the more like the taller, leaner ones like you saw?
Taller, leaner ones out here, but there are, in this area, there are lots of reports.
Our next story begins with a father and his son, Jack, seeking a peaceful retreat at a secluded campsite far from the rest of the campground. They arrived in the evening, set up their campfire, and settled into their familiar routine, expecting a relaxing night under the stars.
We got there probably about 7:30 that night. Jack and I were very relaxed. We had our campfire going. We were settling into our normal routine.
Do you smell that?
But as they sat by the fire, an unsettling aroma began to fill the air, a strong metallic smell, like fresh blood. Unsure of its origin, but growing concerned, the father decided to investigate, believing it might be a recent deer nearby.
It was very odd. As a note of transparency, I'm not a kind of person that I get feelings in the woods. I'm not that person that says, I feel like I'm being watched. But I started smelling that blood, and I started for the first time ever getting a creeped out feeling.
In a heart-stopping moment, he turned back towards the camp and froze. His son's eyes were wide with terror. Standing behind him was a massive black humanoid figure that towered over him, its form so large it nearly blocked out the light from their campfire.
At that moment in time, he turned and looked at me, and his eyeballs went boom.
I turn around, I see my dad, and behind him was this very large black humanoid figure. It almost entirely blacked out our campfire. When something that's 9-10 feet tall, weighs almost 1,000 pounds, is no more than 10 feet away from you, it's scary.
The creature was no more than 10 feet away, a silent, menacing giant that could have ended his life in an instant. Yet, it did nothing but pass by them and disappear into the darkness. Stunned and terrified, they began searching for any sign of what they had just witnessed.
We started looking around for evidence like footprints or tree breaks, structures.
We saw behind the brush pile where long grass had been pressed down, like something had been squatting there watching us.
And we figured out that it had been crouching down behind that brush pile, waiting for us to move out of the way or leave. It would have had to have been very close to our campsite.
Their search led them to a large brush pile right next to their campsite. Behind it, they found long grass pressed down, revealing the spot where the creature had been silently watching them. The father, now deeply concerned for his son's safety, knew they couldn't stay a moment longer, but the nightmare was far from over.
Over there. I popped my spotlight on and I just shined it up into the woods in front of me. And probably 35 feet away, I see these 2 big blue eyes looking at me from between 2 trees.
As the father shined his spotlight into the woods ahead, light hit 2 large blue eyes staring back at him from between the trees. In a moment of terrifying curiosity, Jack ran after it into the darkness.
What are we doing? Hey, Jack! And I ran after it to try to see it myself. I was really terrified at that moment, but I wanted to go investigate and see what I could find.
So I'm hollering, Jack, Jack.
There's something out here, predatorial in nature, that it is not afraid to kill.
Overcome with panic, The father screamed his son's name, desperate to get to him before the creature did. As he finally caught up to Jack, who breathlessly described seeing the creature's massive back and shoulders as it darted away.
He goes, "Dad, I saw it." And I said, "What did you see?" And he described the back side of the creature, shoulders and the upper back, as it darted into a brush line leading into the forest.
Though they managed to escape physically unharmed, the psychological scars of that night would surely remain. The sheer size and proximity of the creature left them with a chilling understanding of their own vulnerability in the wild. One thing is certain, they were intruders in its territory, and they will never forget the night they came face to face with the terrifying reality of what roams the woods after dark. Footage courtesy DMAX UK. The BFRO team arrives on Prince of Wales Island to investigate a chilling report. A 12-year-old boy, Osh, claims to have had a terrifying close-range encounter with a creature he believes was Bigfoot. During a meeting with the mayor, the team learned that Osh had encountered a gajiet, the name the Haida people give to Sasquatches, just outside Heidelberg. Tony arranged for the team to meet Osh at the location of the sighting. The investigators hoped to ease the boy's lingering fear while uncovering new clues about what might be stalking the forests near Heidelberg.
During our meeting with the mayor, he told us about a young boy named Osh who had a terrifying encounter with a Gagit. Gagit is the name the Haida people use for Sasquatches in Alaska. The incident happened right outside the town of Heidelberg. Luckily, Tony arranged for us to meet him at the site of his encounter, and hopefully we can help ease his mind.
Cliff Barackman explained that reports like Osh's occasionally reach the team, but few are as vivid or unsettling. This wasn't a fleeting shadow. It was a daylight face-to-face encounter during a deer hunt. The experience had clearly shaken Osh to his core. Now, with the chance to visit the site, the team was eager to see if the forest still held its secrets.
I've heard similar stories to Osh's before. He had a pretty close encounter, full on daylight while he was deer hunting. He was shaken by this encounter, so I'm really looking forward to going to the site with him.
The BFRO team asked Osh to explain how he had reached the area where the encounter took place. He told them he had driven his four-wheeler down the winding road, parked it at the edge of the forest, and then ventured further on foot into the dense woods. Feeling at ease guiding the investigators, Osh confidently led them step by step to the very spot where the terrifying encounter had unfolded, showing them every detail as he remembered it.
Where did you go in? How'd you access it?
I drove my four-wheeler down this road, and I parked here, and I went in on foot back this way.
Are you feel okay taking us in there and showing us?
Yeah, sure.
All right, well, lead the way and we'll follow you.
Suddenly, piercing screams erupted from three separate directions at the same time. The sounds were deep, rough, and utterly unlike anything Osh had ever heard before, reverberating through the trees and freezing him in place. His mind raced, trapped in the terrifying moment, as an overwhelming sense of dread gripped every fiber of his body.
And as soon as I turned around, I heard these loud screams coming in three directions, and I just froze.
He turned slowly, and there it stood, an 8-foot-tall shadow, motionless, silent, eyes glowing with an unnatural stare. Fear gripped him like ice, rooting him as the creature's cold presence seeped into his very soul.
And I turned, and there was about this 8-foot creature standing there just staring at me. I froze up. I looked right in its eyes. It's the most terrifying sight I've ever seen in my life.
Shaken to his very core, Osh lowered his head and squeezed his eyes shut, trying to shut out the fear that had taken hold of him. The forest seemed to hold its breath, silent and oppressive, until after what felt like 3 long, endless minutes, a slow, heavy thumping, thump, 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 shattered the quiet, each beat echoing through the trees like a warning.
It shook me, and I put my head straight down and I closed my eyes. And about a good 3 minutes later, I hear just thump, thump.
Finally, gathering what little courage he had left, he slowly opened his eyes. Through the thinning trees, a faint clearing came into view, a small patch of light in the dense forest. Yet all around him, the haunting screams of unseen creatures continued to echo, chilling him to the bone and reminding him that the danger was far from over.
And I open my eyes and I look up and I could just see trees just clearing, although the screams were still going on from the other creatures.
It was walking away from you?
Yeah.
Bobo raised a measuring stick, asking Osh to confirm when the top aligned with the creature's remembered head height. "Right there," the boy said. The top of the stick hovered just under a nearby branch. "That's about 9 feet," Bobo noted, clearly impressed.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna raise this stick up and you tell me when you think the top of the stick is at where the top of its head was.
Okay. Say about right there.
So that's about 9 foot.
Based on the comparison, the team estimated the creature stood between 8.5 and 9 feet tall, well within the documented range for an adult male Sasquatch. Could Osh have encountered the same creature reported by other witnesses on Prince of Wales Island? Or is something even more mysterious lurking in these remote Alaskan forests?
We found that the creature was probably about 8.5 or 9 feet tall. That puts it squarely in the realm of the average adult male Sasquatch.
Welcome to Cabin in the Woods, a channel that dives into the eerie world of folklore and unsolved mysteries. The creator tackles long-standing enigmas, none more famous than the Patterson Gimlin film. While many call it a man in a suit, he presents chilling evidence that what Patterson and Gimlin captured in 1967 was no hoax. Step by step, he unveils evidence that forces viewers to confront a much darker reality. The analysis begins by challenging everything we know about human movement. The creator explains how the creature's distinct bent knee propulsion and gait would be impossible for any human, especially in a bulky suit.
First of all, we have biomechanics and gait. According to anthropologist and primate expert Dr. Jeff Meldrum, the bent knee propulsion that we see from the creature in the film would be impossible, or at the very least highly impractical for a human being. We're just not built to propel ourselves forward with that bent knee stride that you see from the creature in the film.
He then highlights the stride length, measured at 41 inches from the footprints left behind. This isn't just a long step, it's a smooth, powerful gait that even a tall human would struggle to mimic without looking awkward, starkly contrasting the graceful, natural movement captured in the grainy footage.
The footprints cast by Patterson and Gimlin after they filmed the creature had a 41-inch stride length on average, which is a much longer stride than an average human could comfortably copy, even a taller than average human. I mean, I'm 6 feet tall. I attempted some 41-inch strides before making this video. I just wouldn't look nearly as graceful as the subject of the film does, even at my height and with rather long legs. It's just not doable for human beings.
The investigation then moves from the creature's walk to the very anatomy beneath its skin, or fur. We are shown that in the stabilized footage, one can clearly see muscles flexing and moving with each step.
We're pretty good at making realistic monkey and monster suits nowadays, but we still haven't mastered the ability to recreate authentic muscle movement, the flexing and changing of shape and hardness of muscles that we see beneath the skin of real creatures, ourselves included. But in the Patterson-Gimlin film, you can clearly see that we have flexing calf muscles as the creature propels itself forward with each footstep. We see flexing thigh muscles, we see glute muscles changing and flexing.
The narrator highlights the visible flexing of calf, thigh, and even back muscles, a level of detail that special effects experts of the time, and even today, would find nearly impossible to recreate in a suit. The argument is simple and terrifying. Suits don't have muscles, but living creatures do.
In fact, according to two different veteran Hollywood special effects specialists, Bill Munns and John Chambers, the sort of muscle flexing beneath the skin quality that we see in the Patterson-Gimlin film would be extremely difficult and most likely impossible for a human being in a suit to replicate.
Next, the analysis focuses on the creature's proportions, which defy human anatomy.
It's obvious to anyone who has seen the film that the arms of the subject are a lot longer in proportion to its body length than the arms of a human. In fact, several recreation attempts with humans in suits have failed for just this reason, because the arms of the human in the suit always look comically short in comparison to the actual Patterson-Gimlin film.
Its arms are far longer in proportion to its body than a human's, and they swing with a natural smoothness that suggests real limbs, not prosthetics hidden in sleeves. The entire skeletal structure, from its torso to leg ratio to the length of its limbs, points not to a disguised man, but to something else entirely.
The next reason the film is authentic is the behavioral realism we see from the creature. If it were just a man in a suit, he probably wouldn't have acted so nonchalant. But instead, we have this creature slowly, nonchalantly walking away from the camera, turning once to glance back at the men filming her.
The most unsettling evidence lies in the creature's behavior. This isn't the act of an actor playing a monster. It's the instinctive response of a wild animal caught off guard, viewing the humans not as a threat, but as something to observe before slipping back into the safety of the wilderness.
To put it another way, the creature's body language in the film doesn't seem forced. It seems natural. It really does appear like an animal in its native environment, moving easily and comfortably through that environment.
Finally, the creator dismantles any lingering doubt by listing the numerous respected scientists, physical anthropologists, primatologists, and biomechanics experts who have studied the film and concluded that the subject is a genuine, non-human primate.
Dr. Grover Krantz, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who we already mentioned, Dr. Dmitry Donskoy, Dr. Esteban Sarmiento, Dr. John Napier, and Dr. Henner Fahrenbach. 6 solid pieces of evidence for the Patterson-Gimlin film's authenticity.
The weight of this expert testimony transforms the film from a piece of folklore into a potential scientific document. The video leaves us with a deeply unsettling conclusion, but the evidence presented points to a far more disturbing truth. We can debate the footage forever, but the question remains, what happens when it's not on camera, but standing right in front of you? Footage courtesy Travel Channel. Journey deep into America's darkest forests, in these woods are haunted, where ordinary people recount chilling encounters with creatures that defy explanation. Their stories reveal that far more terrifying things than bears lurk in the shadows. That afternoon, Jake, a seasoned hunter, scanned the woods, waiting for any sign of movement. Hours passed without a deer. Then, finally, something stirred. He raised his bow, ready for the perfect shot, but the animal stopped behind a tree just 30 yards away.
Finally, I seen movement. And I was like, yeah, here we go. I got one coming down, and I actually got my bow up, and I got ready for this deer to come out. And it stopped behind a tree. It would have been 30, 35 yards away from me. It'd have been a good shot. I would have been able to have if it would have came out broadside, I would have had a good shot on it.
Suddenly, there was movement again, swift and deliberate. His heart pounded, adrenaline flooding his veins as he readied himself for what he thought was a deer. But when the figure stepped into view, every thought vanished. It moved through the trees with an eerie, unnatural grace. No visible leg movement, no swing of the arms, not even a glance toward the ground. It was as if the figure wasn't walking at all, but silently gliding above the forest floor.
Seen movement again? Yeah, my heart started going. I'm pumped up now, all right. And I thought it was the deer coming out. But it was man. It was as if he was floating across the woods. I didn't see legs walking. His arms didn't sway. He didn't look down like you would look in the woods to see if you're walking on anything.
Jake lifted his binoculars. What he saw deepened the mystery. A man, seemingly from the 1700s, wearing a judge's wig and an old-fashioned ruffled shirt. He didn't belong there. Not in these woods, not in this time. Then, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the silence. Jake froze, raw, unnatural, unforgettable.
I picked up my binoculars. Maybe, I would be able to figure out a little bit better. It looked like somebody from the 1700s. He's got a judge wig on. and one of those shirts on is ruffled, like down the middle.
And just like that, it was gone. One moment, the figure stood there solid and imposing. The next, the forest was eerily silent and empty. Jake's eyes remained locked on the exact spot, searching desperately. Nothing moved. No sound disturbed the stillness. Nothing at all. A cold shiver ran up his spine, sinking deep into his bones. In that frozen moment, he understood with terrifying clarity that he had witnessed something impossible, something that simply shouldn't exist in this world.
But then when I was watching, he disappeared, gone. But I'm still looking like he's got to be there. I'm still looking at this tree. He's got to be there. And I'm looking, it's just not there. He's not there. I knew I seen something that couldn't be explained.
A low, uneasy whisper drifted through the trees. Sounds like they've got company. At first, it seemed like any animal, a bear maybe. But the truth settled in. It wasn't an animal, something unknown, something otherworldly. A tense, shaky voice broke the silence, confirming their fear.
Growling harder. Sounds like you got company. We didn't know till later, but it wasn't just a big old animal that's just out there walking around. It was something else. You always think, oh, there's an answer for everything. Not for this.
The first thing he noticed were the eyes, cold, hollow, and utterly unnatural. They seemed to hold a darkness far older than the forest itself, alive and malevolent, as if they had been waiting there for centuries. The stare pierced straight through him, chilling him to the bone, and for a moment he felt the weight of something ancient and unknowable fixated on his very soul.
The first thing you see is the eyes. Different than a deer or a raccoon or a hog or anything. They just... the strangest thing you've ever seen.
A rustling moved across the path, too deliberate, too heavy for the wind. "Seth, where are you?" His voice trembled. Then a massive figure emerged. Broad, square shoulders, thick matted hair, a distorted, unnatural head. The eyes glowed red in the dark, and long, tangled hair draped over its shoulders like an ancient watching sentinel. A team of Bigfoot researchers travels to Texas to follow up on credible sightings shared at a recent town hall. Their first stop is to meet with James and Carrie Hendricks, a couple whose roadside sighting from 2003 is as strange as it is terrifying. The team hopes revisiting the site will reveal more about the creature's behavior, but they're not prepared for the chilling details the couple is about to share. Arriving at the remote stretch of road, the couple guided the investigators through their encounter.
We were driving along coming from this direction right over here. It was just before twilight. When I came around the curve, I saw an animal running on two legs. As he got up to the edge of the pavement, he looked at me and then dropped down on all fours, and he crossed right in front of me. Came up on the other side, squatted down and looked back over its shoulder at me. He stood up, stepped into this area and headed that direction.
Once on the other side, it squatted down, glanced back one final time, and disappeared into the trees. They recount seeing a creature about 5 feet tall, with a stocky, muscular build, reddish-brown hair, and a flat face with unnervingly human-like features.
At the town hall meeting were some tribe members that invited me to come down to the reservation and do some squatching. I ran into some natives this morning that told me about a Bigfoot-type structure behind one of the houses where they were hearing vocalizations. I gotta check this.
While one part of the team investigates the roadside crossing, another investigator, Bobo, heads deep into the Alabama Coshata Reservation, a known hotspot for strange activity. Pushing deep into the woods, he stumbled upon a crudely built shelter.
This is not a natural structure. This is definitely squatchy. This side's totally open, but this side, I imagine that used to be blocked. So I think this ambush structure was built here because right here is a game trail, a well-used game trail. Just a little highway.
The terrifying realization dawns on him. This isn't a shelter. It's an ambush point built by an intelligent predator to stalk its prey. The investigation's final and most chilling case takes Cliff to meet Jeff Stewart, a man with a story so extraordinary it challenges belief. Jeff claims he had an encounter with a Sasquatch in broad daylight that dropped out of a tree just 5 feet away from him. At the location, Jeff relives the terrifying moment he heard a loud crash right behind him.
How far are we from where you actually saw this thing?
Right here, about 100 yards.
That one?
That's it, right there. Up in where you can see the natural saddle is where it was sitting.
So you didn't actually see it up there though, right?
Never saw it until it hit the ground.
So now that we're actually here at the location, tell me everything that happened. Like what happened before, during, and after the encounter.
He spun around to see a creature on the ground, having seemingly just fallen from the branches above. In the few seconds they stood face to face, Jeff saw its features in stunning detail.
So, using this opportunity, what did you notice about its face?
There was no visible hair in the face or on the face anywhere other than around the mouth. There was very, very fine, what I would call baby hair.
Okay.
The skin was dark, but it was real shiny looking, almost like oily looking. Its mouth was open just a little bit.
Okay.
That was the only noise that I heard, was it actually.
The face was hairless, with dark, shiny skin that looked almost oily. The creature was so close, he could hear its faint guttural breathing. As Jeff fumbled for his camera, the creature fled into the woods. He managed to take a picture, and although the image is blurry, it captures a large, dark figure disappearing into the brush. For the investigator, Jeff's voice turns his doubt into a chilling belief. He may have just listened to one of the most compelling close encounter accounts ever recorded. Footage, courtesy, Salish, Sasquatch. For years, stories of Bigfoot have sparked curiosity, but for researcher Scott Taylor, it became a lifelong mission. A dedicated field investigator with years of experience studying sightings and unexplained activity, Scott has spent countless hours deep in the woods searching for answers. This short film follows his journey, how it all began, and the encounters that continue to drive his search for Sasquatch. In 2020, during the height of the pandemic, Scott moved to western Mason County, just 10 miles from the site of his very first encounter, deep within the mysterious Woochie Valley.
Out here to the western part of Mason County in 2020 when the whole COVID thing hit, and I kind of wanted to get out this way because it's not too far from where I had my first encounter, which is just west of here, about 10 miles as a crow flies. It was up in the Wynoochee Valley.
Just around a bend, slightly out of sight, a massive shadowy figure stepped onto the road. Then came the sound, an otherworldly vocalization that tore through the silence. The first call was deafening, so loud it made him stop in his tracks. He quickly told his companion to stay quiet. But it wasn't over. It called out 3 more times, each one echoing through the trees with chilling force. As the forest rang with the sound, he ran through every animal he could think of. Bears, coyotes, wolves, even birds. But none matched it. The call was unfamiliar, raw, and deeply unsettling, leaving no doubt they were hearing something beyond the ordinary.
Around a bend a little bit out of sight of that location, and it had by then stepped up onto the road and it started to vocalize. And with the first vocalization, it was hugely loud, extremely loud. And I stopped and told her to shush because she was talking. And then it vocalized 3 more times. And in the time it was vocalizing, I was going through the list in my head of what animals make that kind of a sound, and there was none.
The only way Scott could make sense of it was to dive headfirst into the mystery. He became obsessed with learning everything about Bigfoot, studying every sighting, every cast, every account he could find. He wanted to know what they are, who they might be, and what secrets they still hold.
My way of coping was I had to find out everything I could about Bigfoots. I wanted to know what they were, who they were, everything I could know.
He explained that tracking one of these beings requires a completely different mindset. When you find a footprint, you can't just look a few steps ahead. The next print might be 50 or 60 inches away. Humans average a stride of about 30 inches, but these beings move with an effortless, powerful gait that makes them almost ghost-like in the forest.
And he taught me, well, here's one track, now you got to look 50, 60 inches beyond it for the next track, because we people, we tend to look at 30 inches like we're expecting a person to walk, but they have a much longer stride.
As they stood frozen, a distinct eerie chatter echoed up from the trees below. The sound was unmistakable, the unmistakable call of a Bigfoot. A mixture of excitement and tension ran through Scott's voice as he turned to his friends, eyes wide with both wonder and apprehension, and whispered, "Something's out there, maybe Bigfoots, hidden in the shadows, silently watching our every move."
There, I heard Bigfoot chatter down below us, and I thought, oh, they're there. So I mentioned to the guys, hey, there's Bigfoots down over there. And they give me the eye roll, and yeah, right.
Moments later, a sudden movement caught his eye. He spun around, and there it was. A massive, shadowy figure sprang from tree to tree with astonishing speed and agility, its powerful limbs carrying it silently through the forest as if it had been born to move through the trees. Every motion was fluid, purposeful, and hauntingly natural, leaving him frozen in awe and disbelief.
And I'm looking for one of my hunting partners, and he's coming up behind me. So I turn around and I look at him, and behind him, I watched one jump from one tree to another tree.
Just as Scott was about to turn from the logging road toward the camp, something unbelievable happened. A towering, hulking figure suddenly appeared right in front of him, blocking his path. He raised his camera, finger trembling on the shutter, but before he could capture even a single frame, the creature bolted across the road with astonishing speed and disappeared into the dense forest. It was massive, impossibly powerful, and moved with a fluid strength that left Scott frozen, his mind struggling to process the reality before him. Bigfoot, or something even stranger, lurks in the woods. But will anyone ever know the full truth? Meet the team behind the YouTube channel Small Town Monsters, a crew dedicated to investigating and documenting the strange folklore. This time, one story would draw them deep into the Sierra Nevadas to confront a tale so divisive it has fractured the Sasquatch research community for over a decade, the infamous Sierra. The story begins with Justin Smear, a lifelong hunter from California. In October 2010, he and a friend ventured into a new section of Plumas National Forest, expecting another routine hunt.
And me and my buddy were on a routine hunting trip to a new area in the Sierras, and we encountered what I believe was a Bigfoot. At the end of the day was pretty much wrapping up. The next morning, it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I catch some movement, and we see it at the same time. We're driving, and I look and I see a hairy object. I thought it was a bear. And then I look and then I see what was a Bigfoot. I mean, I don't know how to describe it any other way.
The day had been unusually successful, with sightings of deer and other wildlife drawn to bait in a nearby meadow. But as they approached the site, their expectations were shattered by an encounter that would alter the course of their lives forever. As they spotted movement, it wasn't the bear they were expecting.
Maybe 10 seconds go by, we're talking a couple different things, and then it does this. Then it decides, I think that it's seen the rifle too much, because I'm like pointing out the window, my buddy's like, don't shoot, don't shoot, don't. And so it's right here, so it turns, because it's like, we knew it was about to run off, and it was getting nervous. It turns, and I shot it right here.
Justin spotted a large, hairy, upright figure, Bigfoot, in all its unsettling form. Justin's heart raced as he aimed his rifle, and he fired. The shock of the moment was quickly replaced by something far more disturbing. 2 smaller juvenile creatures appeared, trailing the wounded adult. The large figure disappeared from view, leaving Justin and his friend to watch the confused young ones, calling out to each other in eerie, unnatural tones.
And he's like, what the f did you do? And I was like, And I'm like having a moment, and like he's like, "What did you do?" It's like, "Look at it." And then I toss it like right over, and he comes down, and it's just sitting there, and it hits his feet. He's standing right here. I was like, I don't know if we said anything. I was like, well, what do we do now?
Driven by the need for undeniable proof, he made a fateful choice. He shot one of the small creatures. When his friend returned, horrified by his actions, they argued in panic. With no time to waste, they hastily buried the body under logs, branches, and rocks, planning to return the next day to retrieve it.
And so I brought it right here and put it right here. I probably did something like this, and like it created a hole. They were moving stuff. I was using the butt of the gun. Then we grabbed a bunch of stuff and we put it over it. Like big stuff. It's not like, I mean, we hid it as much as you could hide it in 15 minutes.
Their plan was immediately thwarted. A massive storm swept through the Sierras, dumping several feet of snow and making the roads impassable.
So when we dug here, we dug there, we dug there. We didn't even know, like we could see like tops of the bush. We had no idea if we were like here or all the way over there where you see, because the snow, it was white. It just all looked the same. It's literally this high after 1 week in the snow, like 3 feet dumping at this.
And these, all these bushes were here back then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this alder farm thing, it all looked the same.
Weeks turned into a month before they could return, and when they did, the landscape was unrecognizable. Despite digging for hours, they found nothing but a small sample of hair and flesh. Desperate for answers, Justin shared his story on a taxidermy forum, sparking a firestorm and drawing the attention of Bigfoot researchers.
I'm a taxidermist, hunting guide, bear hunter. Justin made a post on a taxidermy forum at a time when I was really into finding out as much as I could about Bigfoot and Sasquatch. I was quite early in my search, actually. Suddenly, Justin, and I can't remember his username at the time, but he chimed in and says, "Well, you guys might want to call bullshit," he said, "but I shot one."
In July 2011, a full-scale expedition was launched, with researchers like Derek Randalls, Bart Cutino, and Dr. Jeff Meldrum joined Justin at the site, eager to uncover the truth. Despite a meticulous multi-day search of the entire area,
it was actually kind of uncanny. It was almost exactly the way that Justin described it. You know how you get this perception in your brain when somebody's telling you a story and they lay it out for you and you kind of see it, you visualize it. It was almost exactly like I visualized. So we excavated the mound of dirt, and we actually spent probably 8 hours looking through that area where he had said that they had placed the small one under a bush, to no avail. We looked very hard and found nothing.
The expedition found nothing. No bones, no remains, no definitive evidence of the events Justin described. Experts on the team noted that in a forest environment teeming with predators, a carcass wouldn't last long, making the lack of discovery disappointing, but not entirely surprising.
There's cougars, there's bears. So just to say, if this thing would have been shot and bleeding, it would have been putting off a scent. It would have been laying there, and it probably wouldn't have been more than a day before some predator would have grabbed it. So it wasn't a big shock to me that it wasn't there. But we did, like I said, we looked vigorously. We looked for blood, we looked for bone, we looked for hair. We looked for anything that could be associated with it.
The failure to find a body, combined with the shocking nature of the claim, left the story in a state of permanent limbo, fueling endless debate online.
I never actually went back to the kill site, but I will say that when I was there, I did my due diligence. We looked extremely well through the area.
We definitely didn't want to take a picture and get caught for what we had done, for what I did.
Was this a hunter's terrifying encounter with an unknown creature, leading to a rash decision? Or was it something else entirely? The lack of a body leaves the story as haunting folklore, whispered among researchers and enthusiasts. One thing is certain, Justin Smager's account forces us to confront a chilling reality. If these creatures exist, the first undeniable proof might not come from a photo, but from the barrel of a gun. The woods hide many secrets, and some are darker than we can fathom. Footage courtesy, a flash of beauty Bigfoot revealed. What if the most beautiful empathetic beings on Earth weren't human? Ginger's encounters with Bigfoot, from Texas to Washington, led to an unexpected bond, offering moments of healing, connection, and awe. Few expect to meet a legend on their own land, but that's exactly what happened to Ginger. After 20 years tending her peaceful pecan orchard in Texas, her world changed with a single, unforgettable encounter. Though she had grown up hearing Pacific Northwest legends of Bigfoot, nothing prepared her for the myth becoming real.
My name is Ginger, and I lived in Texas for 20 years. And when I was living in Texas and owned a pecan orchard, that's when I had my first encounter with Bigfoot. I'm originally from the Pacific Northwest, so I had heard of.
Ginger's certainty solidified the moment she saw it with her own eyes. She was at home, going about her day with her children, when something outside the window caught her attention. There, standing there in plain view, was a figure she had only ever heard about in stories, a being that, by all logic, shouldn't exist. In that instant, the impossible became undeniably real, and her world shifted forever.
I was home at the pecan orchard with my children, and I was cleaning, and I looked out the window and saw something.
It was the motion that first caught her attention. Slow, deliberate, far too large to be anything ordinary. At first, she thought a gorilla might have escaped from a zoo, but its posture was upright, its shoulders broad, movements deliberate, almost human. For a long, frozen moment, she simply stared, heart pounding. Then it hit her. She knew exactly what she was seeing. It was Bigfoot.
Thought a mountain gorilla had escaped from the zoo was my first initial thought. But the longer I looked at it, the more I realized that this animal was also a man. It looked like half gorilla, half man. But I knew as soon as I saw it that it was...
A strange stillness hung in the night, as if the world itself were holding its breath. At the edge of the clearing, a dark, towering shape appeared, motionless. Her heart stopped. She whispered to herself that it was just a tree. But something fell off. When she looked again, the clearing was empty. That was when she realized, if it wasn't there anymore, it had been Bigfoot.
I was trying to be like I had finally told myself that it was a tree that had been struck by lightning that looked like a Bigfoot. And I told myself to walk away from the window and come back later, and if it was gone, then it was a Bigfoot. And when I came back, it was gone.
Then it appeared again, taller this time, gliding between the trees with deliberate grace. It didn't walk like a person. Its long arms pulled it along the trunks, smooth and controlled, like it was built for the forest itself. Every move was precise, almost hypnotic, like a sloth, yet darker, more deliberate, pressing flat against the bark before sliding deeper into shadow.
And as the big one moved tree to tree, he used like his arms and he didn't sway. It was like they could hold all their weight in like their fingertip. It reminded me of like a sloth, the way that a sloth can like hold out at like its arm and like almost lay flat.
Do you see that? The way it moved through the trees was eerily fluid, every step deliberate and precise, too natural for something that supposedly shouldn't exist. Ginger couldn't tear her eyes away, mesmerized by the creature's grace and power. As she watched, a chilling thought crossed her mind. Was she observing the forest, or was the forest itself quietly observing her?
They stretched out and manipulated the trees, looked so natural. But yet it shouldn't. They shouldn't exist, but it was seeing an animal in their element, and the way that they did it, it was like the trees were made for them.
It was early morning near the river, the mist still hovering over the water. As the hiker scanned the opposite bank, he froze. There, emerging from the shadows, was a towering figure. Its dark, bulky shape was unmistakable, standing upright among the undergrowth. The creature paused, almost as if it sensed he was watching, before slipping silently back into the trees. For a brief moment, he caught a glimpse of something massive behind a tree, partially hidden, but the outline was unmistakable, confirming it was no ordinary animal. Closer to the trail, the hiker noticed something that made his heart race. An enormous footprint pressed deep into the damp soil. The size and shape were unlike any humans, its presence undeniable. With each careful step, he retraced the path, trying to understand what he had seen. The figure from the river, the shadowy giant among the trees, and the massive footprint left a chilling certainty in his mind. He had encountered something real, something the legends whispered about for centuries. But the question lingered in his mind. Would he ever truly know what he had seen, or would it remain a mystery of the forest forever? Up next, we delve into the terrifying encounters of Tina Sam uploaded on YouTube channel Wildman of the Woods. Around 12:30 a.m., Tina and her friends took a golf cart into the woods to investigate headlights they'd spotted earlier. Deep in the forest, they paused often, scanning the darkness, when a sudden sound from the left shattered the silence.
About a year. It was 12:30 at night. I was sitting on my fire with a female friend of mine. Maybe 45 minutes before that, I had seen headlights up in the woods. So I was like, you guys want to jump on the cart? Let's go up in the woods. And we were talking and we were all kind of looking to the right. And then I hear a twig snap.
Having grown up hunting and fishing, Tina knew instantly that the sharp snap of a twig meant something was there. As she and her friends turned, they saw it. A figure rising from the ground, one hand pressing down as it fluidly stood, then began walking away. The reaction was immediate, instinctive, pure flight.
And my golf cart was moving before I made a conscious thought to move. Like it was just a flight. So in the adrenaline of all this happening, and the passenger didn't see it, so she's like, what just happened? And we're all freaked out, adrenalined up. I passed the only trail I know how to get out of these woods, because like I said, I was only...
Before Tina could process what was happening, her body reacted. In the panic, she missed the only trail she knew, careening through the trees at full speed. When they finally stopped in a bean field, Tina turned to her young friend. Her face was contorted in pure terror as she screamed at Tina to keep going. For months, Tina insisted the creature was human-sized, even telling her research partner as much. It wasn't until 3 months later that the horrifying truth finally sank in.
I frequented back up in the woods a lot, and people would ask me, including my research partner, size-wise, and I said human size. So maybe 3 months later, we happened to be in that part of the woods. I said, hey, while I have you up here, jump off the cart. I'm gonna stop, you jump off the cart, walk over to that tree she wasn't 10 feet from my cart, and I already knew. My lips kind of stick to my teeth thinking about it, and it was a lot bigger, and to be honest with you, I lied to people for the next year.
The figure she had seen was significantly larger. This realization chilled her to the bone, and for the next year, she couldn't bring herself to return to those woods, making up excuses whenever someone asked to go. Years later, Tina would face something far more insidious while camping deep in the Allegheny National Forest with her friends.
We were camping in the Alleghenies. We were meeting some reporters from the Wall Street Journal. So 5 of us went up, my friend Amy, my friend Monica, my friend Kevin, and if I'm gonna be honest, like the last 10 seconds, I did have a quick flash thought, is that footfall? And then it was rhythmic, so it was doom, doom, and then it went doom, doom, doom. Now mind you, I'm not hearing that.
As she lay on her cot inside her van, miles from civilization in the pitch-black night, she suddenly began to experience an intense, rhythmic pulsing sensation lasted for about 2 minutes before ending with 3 quick pulses.
And I said, well, I was laying there, and all of a sudden, I feel this pulse. And as soon as I say that, Amy and Monica both whipped their heads around, and Amy said, if you remember that part in Jurassic Park with the water glass? And when she said that, I couldn't hear or see, but when she said that, it really resonated, because I was like, oh my God, like, if I knew what that felt like that was making that water, that could explain what I felt, and it was scary.
These life-altering events propelled Tina to seek answers. She took dozens of reports from seasoned outdoorsmen, many of whom had buried their experiences for years. One story in particular stood out. An elderly hunter in his 70s who saw a Bigfoot standing at his woodline from his window.
He's telling us that he was just standing at his window one day. He's looking out the window and there is a Bigfoot standing there. And there is no doubt in his mind that that's what he's seen. Positively, that was it. It ruined him because hunting and fishing was his Christmas. That's all he did. He was shopping for the stuff and he was in the woods. And he could not get himself to go back in those woods.
The man teared up as he explained that the experience ruined his greatest passion, and he could never bring himself to go back into the woods, eventually selling the property he loved. The mystery of what Tina and others have seen in the woods remains unsolved. But these encounters serve as a powerful reminder that there are still corners of our world that are wild, unknown, and home to things that defy our understanding.